Hello and welcome. You're watching Unplugged TV India. This is Alice Francis. Let's catch some major updates from around the world. Fuel prices risen by rupees 6 in last 10 days. Fuel prices continue to rise with petrol and diesel rates in Delhi rising by another 80 paisa per litre on Thursday, netting an increase of nearly rupees 6.40 per litre in the ninth adjustment in 10 days. Petrol now costs rupees 101.81 per litre in the national capital, while diesel costs rupees 93.07 per litre. Petrol and diesel prices in Mumbai have increased by 84 paisa per litre, costing rupees 116.72 and diesel 100 per litre. Given the substantial rise in crude oil prices on international markets, prices are expected to rise even further. It will have a cascade effect on other prices, causing inflationary pressure and showing GDP. It will have a cascade effect and other things costs. Rahul Gandhi led Congress nationwide protest against fuel price hike. As the fuel prices continue to soar for the ninth day, Congress leader Rahul Gandhi led the party workers to stage a protest at Vijay Chowk in Delhi on Thursday. Meanwhile, the Congress has planned to start a statewide anti-price hike campaign called Mehengai Mukt Bharat Abhiyan, in which it would hold rallies and marches across the country from March 31 to April 7. Congress in a tweet wrote, "The fight for Mehengai Mukt Bharat has begun. Come join us, fight to save your hard-earned money, fight against insensitivity and incompetency." Congress MPs led by Rahul Gandhi sat on a protest dharna against inflation at Vijay Chowk, New Delhi today. Tamil Nadu Supreme Court strikes down 10.5% reservation for Vanyar community. The Supreme Court on Thursday struck down the 10.5% reservation in educational institutions and government job persons from the Vanyar caste, a most backward community. A bench of Justices L. Nageshwara Rao and B.R. Gavai was hearing a plea filed by the state of Tamil Nadu challenging a Madras High Court judgment which struck down the law. The court said that there is no basis to treat Vanyar as a separate group compared to others. Thus, the 2021 Act is ultra vires Articles 14 and 16 of the Constitution. It is said that the caste can be the basis of internal reservation, but it cannot be the sole basis. Special law was brought to meet the demand of Vanyas as they were unable to compete with the other communities in the MBC-DNC category. India-France begin mega naval war game in Arabian Sea. India and France on Wednesday began a 5-day mega naval war game in the Arabian Sea in reflection of growing congruence in their maritime security cooperation. The Indian Navy said various platforms including ships, submarines, maritime patrol aircraft, fighter aircraft and helicopters of the two navies are participating in the Varuna exercise. It is the 20th edition of the Varuna series of exercises and it has become a vital part of the strategy ties between the two countries. French Navy Chief Admiral Pierre Verdian visited India this week, during which he held talks with his Indian counterpart Admiral R. Hari Kumar, focusing on mechanism to ensure peace and stability in the Indian Ocean amid rising Chinese presence in the region. Global news. Singapore PM says Ukraine war poses awkward questions for China. Singapore Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong said Russia's invasion of Ukraine raises awkward questions for China because it violates Beijing's closely held principles of territorial integrity, sovereignty and non-interference. Lee was asked during an event organized by the Washington-based Council on Foreign Relations whether he thinks China has paid a political price the region for the maintaining these ties with Russia. His remarks echo concern in Asia and elsewhere on whether China would use the war in Ukraine to advance its own strategy interests closely to home. Much of the Asia-Pacific depends on Beijing as a key economic partner, and Li said China's refusal to distance itself from Russia won't negatively impact its standing in the region. Since the war started, Beijing has sought to portray itself as neutral. China has issued statements supporting Ukraine's sovereignty and expresses concern about civilian casualties while supporting Russia at the UN and blaming the US for provoking the war by encouraging the expansion of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. People to be locked down in Shanghai's toughest COVID test yet. Some 16 million people living in China's Shanghai will be locked down for 4 days starting Friday morning. Residents in the western half of the city cannot leave their homes even to walk a pet as officials race to control a COVID outbreak that has disrupted daily life in the global financial hub. Restrictions that began Friday are the second of a two-phase citywide lockdown. The first involved closing the eastern half, which is home to 9 million people and includes key financial and business districts. The western half will lock down 2 hours before the eastern side of the city is released. The new lockdown will be more complicated given the greater number of people and larger geographical area, the city's Secretary General said. Authorities will consult experts and review result of mass COVID test before fully lifting restrictions in eastern Shanghai. Meanwhile, officials also said they will carry out large-scale disinfection of major public places including offices and homes, construction sites, public transports and markets for a month. Tough time for Sri Lankans as Sri Lanka runs out of diesel, faces longest ever blackout. Diesel was no longer on scale across Sri Lanka on Thursday, crippling transport as the crisis hit country's 22 million people endure record-long power blackouts. The South Asian nation is in the grips of its worst economic downturn since the independence, sparked by an acute lack of foreign currency to pay for even the most essential imports. Diesel, the main fuel for buses and commercial vehicles, was unavailable at stations across the island. According to officials and media reports there, petrol was on sale but in short supply, forcing motorists to abandon their cars in long queues. Owners of private buses, which account for 2/3 of the country's fleet, said they were already out of oil and that even skeleton services may not be possible after Friday. The government there, on the other hand, said it is seeking a bailout from the International Monetary Fund while asking for more loans from India and China. Few updates on a Russia-Ukraine war. The Ukrainian military is preparing for a new Russian offensive in the eastern region of the country. President Volodymyr Zelensky said on Thursday a war in his country entered the 5th week. In a video address, Zelensky mentioned the Russian troop movements were away from Kyiv and Chernihiv and said that was not a withdrawal but rather the consequences of war defenders' work. Zelensky also urged the Australian government to send more military aid to his country. On Wednesday, Moscow announced that it will significantly scale back military operations in the above 2 cities, and later Ukrainian officials reported shelling outside Kyiv and fighting around Chernihiv. Meanwhile, Kyiv has sent total of 45 buses on Thursday to evacuate civilians from Mariupol, which has been worst hit by the Russian invasion. The prospects of the war to end between the 2 countries seem nearly impossible despite multiple rounds of peace talks. A day back, President Zelensky said that talks with Russia were going on but there were no concrete results. Meanwhile, a local ceasefire in Ukraine's besieged port city of Mariupol has been announced to evacuate civilians. Mariupol has been the worst hit since the beginning of war and at least 5,000 civilians have lost their lives in Russian attacks. Thank you for watching Unplugged TV India. Please hit like, subscribe and share, and also do comment. This is Alice Francis signing off.